Hello and welcome to Overview Overwatch. My name is Mossy, and to celebrate hitting 100 subscribers recently, myself and the team decided to take highlights from all our past interviews and compile them into one video for you guys to enjoy. It was a lot of fun going back to the old interviews and seeing all the amazing guests we've had on the channel so far. I'm super thankful for everyone that took part. They are the real stars of the show. I just hope I've done them justice with their video. To all of you who have subscribed to the channel, I cannot thank you enough. Your support means the world to me. The comments, the likes, the views, the subscribes, they all just make my day. Let me know in the comments below which interview you guys enjoyed the most. And a big shout out to Everfrost Esports for supporting me in the channel since day one. Enjoy. What would you regard as some of the things that make a good manager? How do you set a good manager from the rest?
Oh, that's not an easy question, I would say. I mean, if you start by the fact a manager is not just a scrim bot, because like many people just do scrim scheduling and that's all.
Mm-hmm.
I would say what do the difference? Being available 24/7. Like if you're not available, then I think it's done. Like if you can't react in a millisecond, then it's gonna be hard. And I would say, yeah, like learning new skills every time. You need to not put any limit to what you can learn for the team and just do it. So what makes a good manager is like breaking your own limits in terms of skill, being available, and understand what you're doing. Just like try again and again.
Okay. I want to go big picture then, just while we're somewhat on this topic. So, from your point of view as a caster, what are some things in the competitive scene that you think need to be addressed?
Some things in the competitive scene, definitely Blizzard's handling of Tier 2. It's something that's sort of, it's dear to the heart of many casters, players, managers, coaches, production staff, tourney organizers, right? Like, everyone, I think, would agree that Blizzard's handling of Tier 2 in sort of professional Overwatch, the competitive scene, is not great. I mean, there was obviously that whole contender strike stuff quite a while back.
Yeah.
Now, and that was a big thing. That was, I think, where everyone started to realize, there are some big issues with how Tier 2 is ran. And that's it's no discredit to anyone running it. It's Blizzard that are controlling a lot of the actions, for example, and there are a lot of factors that go into running sort of contenders, Tier 2 events, that sort of thing, even Open Division, right? Everyone was like making memes about how top 32 Open Division would go into contenders. And that was a terrible decision from Blizzard like a while back when Overwatch 2 was in beta. But overall, like, support Tier 2, I think is what I would say to sort of fix that, right? You've really got to put more resources in. I mean, you can't have, and this is a recent thing, the streamer tournaments, right? With, a bunch of GMs against a bunch of plats plus Kevh, and that has a bigger prize pool than some contenders tournaments, right?
Yeah.
Professional play is getting less love than content. And that feels like it's a little bit disingenuous to the die-hard fans, die-hard professionals playing the game.
Looking at results, like successful results seem to come quite easily for EXO, and touch wood, hopefully that continues for the next little while. But what would you define then as, say, success for the team? Do you think these results are what you're looking for, or are there other metrics for success?
I think our coach would definitely say that we're doing fine, but we could do a lot better. And I think I agree. I think the players agree too. We're pretty satisfied now, for example, with our run it back performance, but there's always room for improvement. Like, we could have avoided the 2 map losses versus Raspberry. We could have gone for, cleaner runs where we don't lose certain points. But it will always be that way. You'll never be satisfied with your performance, and I think that's a key motivator anyways. So it's good that that's there. But also, like, the players are obviously aiming for not only the cash behind the tournaments, but also the opportunity of getting Overwatch League tryouts, which is very slim at the moment, but it's still there. So there will always be key motivators for them, and that's going to define their success as it goes, outside of practicing lots and lots. And of course, because they are such a great group of friends, then I think just them having fun, like not being demotivated or being burnt out. That is like another big part of success.
Yeah, fair. Any final words then, guys, for the viewers before I leave you go?
Mm, I mean, go follow my Twitter.
That is there, I believe. Yes, we're getting there.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I'd personally say this to those that basically do have aspirations of making it even into higher tier 3, higher tier 2. Maybe you're even good enough to make it into tier 1. Just stay true to yourself, man. Honestly, stay true to yourself. There's going to be so many people that will constantly talk down on you. There'll even be judgments, even small critique words. It really doesn't matter as long as you listen to your own voice. Like, I made it here, personally, where I am now, because I always had self-belief, despite me doing so many dumb things. I'm not a perfect human being, I'll promise you that. When it comes to having to play the game properly, I do very dumb things like Ajaxing and stuff. I legit Ajaxed my way through OD, and even in the prep 2 contenders, like, I promise you I'm not perfect, but as long as you know within yourself, and again, thanks to the people that I've had around me, my teammates currently, Reggie, Optimus, and a shout out to some of my old friends, Mentally Boomed, Sage, and my old former teammates. Like, they've really kind of helped me out, whether it's just small conversations, letting me play with them, to just even socially being around them. Like, everyone's had some influence on me in some way, shape, or form. But in the grand scheme of things, honestly, just stay true to yourself. Like, you will be surprised with what you can pull off.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Prash, I really think you showed effort up there plugging his Twitter.
Yeah.
But
Oh my god, go follow my Twitter. Like, just
I would love for SMC to dabble back into NA
that
rather
was
soon.
yeah, that was going to be my next question. Would you go back then? Yeah.
So as of right now, and the plans that are right now, there's a very high chance we'll dabble back into NA, but most likely not in Overwatch.
Interesting. Okay. Is that all the teaser I'm going to get, or is there more information out there?
For now.
For now. Okay, perfect. All right. I'll take that. I'll take that. Okay, John, we'll circle back to you here again. In terms of Overwatch and EU, then what are your roster plans for the future of this team?
After the tournament, so like I said before, the players, like, we were naturally a bit disappointed with our placement, but with the progress that we made together, and we kind of had a slump for a little while mid tournament, and people's ability to kind of bring that back and turn that into a good environment is something that everyone's pretty happy with. Is something that people always need on their team. Otherwise, you're just fucked as soon as your team, like, environment starts to drag down or you get upset, things like that. But people are very happy with the environment and the progress that we made, and we want to keep doing that. Basically, we feel like we've made a lot of progress, and we will be a much stronger team in the future when people have learned more about the macro of the game and worked on our weaknesses a lot. So, as for tools, I'm not sure. He seems to be kind of intent on having a little break. I'm not super certain on what we're going to do in that regard. But as far as I'm aware right now, the rest of the team, we're pretty intent on staying together and continuing to practice together.
Okay, so as you're saying, you were playing in the Calling All Heroes tourney for Kaiju. Unfortunately, you guys couldn't get the business done versus Shock Timeless, but you guys did, I think, reasonably well. I got to see some of the clips there, and it was great watching you play and watching the team play, especially considering it was on the Overwatch League channel. So how important is it to you that this tournament was broadcast firstly, and then broadcast on the Overwatch League channel then secondly?
I think it's incredibly important. Just like this tournament existing in general. Like when I first heard about it, I like immediately thought of like Valorant Game Changers and how like impactful that has been in that scene, giving people who typically wouldn't have a good shot in the regular esports scene like a safe place to compete and enjoy the game competitively. it's just it's such an important thing to have in an esports scene. It helps cultivate like tier 3 and tier 2. It helps give people who like look at Overwatch League and say like I want to be there one day, but like maybe because of my gender or something I don't have a shot just because of like misogyny or like sexism, that sort of thing. Like it just gives them a chance to play competitively and enjoy their time. So I think it's like incredible. It's just incredibly important, and like the fact that it's also broadcast on like on the Overwatch League channel itself as well. That's important because it just gets it more. It gets more eyes on it. So I think just overall, it's so good to have.
Yes.
How important do you think team culture is at the height of professional play?
I mean, it's everything. Like, let's say your teammates are lazy and go around, like, don't try hard in scrims, so you're just gonna lose. Like, especially in Overwatch League, it means everything that everyone shows up to work, do their work, and then do whatever. And then also grind ranked. Like, there's a lot of lazy people who just like don't play ranked at all, and that's the reason why they lose.
Okay, you would consider rank to be a very important element of getting better at the game.
I think ranked is by far the most important. If you want to improve as an individual, I think. Well, some people disagree, but in my opinion, I think scrims are not the place for personal improvement. Scrims are the place for like team improvement, right? Like if you want to be mechanically better, you need to grind ranked. Like there's no player in the game that's not good at the game who don't play like 8 hours of ranked a day. Like look at Kevh, like he's probably the best European player of all time, and he's been playing ranked like almost 10 hours a day, like for the past 7 years.
Yeah, fair enough. That's a pretty resounding resume for him when you consider it. All right.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
So obviously now you've kind of transitioned over away from the pro play primarily, and now you're kind of focusing on streaming. How's that transition been for you?
That was really weird. Like I just started streaming after Overwatch like in One Trick Ryan, and people really liked that, so I just kind of did that. I did that for a while. I played NA contenders on hyping. I won contenders once in NA against the best contenders team of all time. Pretty sure, not pretty sure again. What's the American Tornado? Yeah, I beat them. I'm the only team in the only team that ever beat them in an NA contender. So that was pretty fun. And then I just realized that like, sure, I might be grinding contenders, but do I really want to be in Overwatch League again and have to drive? So I was like, I just like streaming and entertaining more, and just playing Reinhardt and being a menace.
Does a team in tier 2 need to scrim double blocks every day for the week, or is that the most efficient way of doing it, or are they better off, scrimming less and VOD reviewing more?
I mean, for example, Munich. Friends with a lot of the Munich guys. When they won, not the Trust Me roster. They didn't want to scrim like they want to scrim like once a day, right? And I remember Trust Me getting called a dictator because he was like, "No, we scrim more. We scrim 2 times a day, 3 times a day, right?" Because everyone else was just like fed up with the meta at that point, right?
Mm.
And they wouldn't have done as well if they didn't do that, to be honest. But that's also like forcing yourself to get better, right? If you're only double blocking to double block, you're gonna be bad because you're double blocking to double block, you're not double blocking to improve, right? If you have this thing where you are double blocking and your second block is always horrible because you don't have the motivation to do it, why are you double blocking?
Yeah.
You're just wasting your time at that point. That's more to do with motivation and stuff itself.
Yeah.
I don't think that's really. I can't really say that like double blocking is bad. I think in reality you should want to double block. And I think you should probably mix in triple blocks as well if you can, depending on players' schedules, because I know a lot of players are in school and stuff as well. You should be trying to practice, but that's more to do with if your players can, and if they can like get the determination behind it. The thing is that a lot of the players are pretty stagnant at the moment. If you consider how long they've been in contenders, that's not Flame. That's more to do with the fact that like you've not had any reason to improve, right? Because of the franchise system. If there's like a spot to be in tier 1, right, people would be a lot more hungry.
Fair.
But when you've got players who've been in contenders for like 2.5, 3 years, and they just get nothing out of an L tryout, they get like chucked off after the first stage.
It's hard.
How are they meant to like want to keep going, because it's just like they know that they can be in contenders and they can make money doing that, but like I think they know in their like head that they're probably not going to get Owl, or at least they feel resentful towards it. So it's kind of just it's really sad.
It's tough. Yeah, no, it's absolutely tough. You know, what are some things that you avoid doing as the brand, and what are some things that you strive to do as the brand?
Well, before I started posting, I was told the sort of themes and the things the brand sort of wants to represent, and I was asked as well what themes I see EXO to represent, and I said like it's a team built upon its dominance because of their insane run in B-Sides tournament. Like, so I said, like, they had this, like, well, we still do, but this purple and gold, very regal color scheme.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like I heavily leaned into the sort of we're coming back to retake our throne, like, thing. Like,
Yeah.
and so it worked out really well with the name of the tournament, Run It Back. Like, that's quite literally what we did. Like, so leaning into that and just having an identity for your team and how you word your posts, I think is a good thing to have. For the don'ts, like we said, don't overdo your sort of like bantering, and don't have it turn from banter into trash talk into insults. Like, you don't want it to like slippery slope down into some like just hatred. Like, you just want to have fun. You want tier 2 to be a nice place to be, like, because like there's no point in really like bantering unless the end goal of it is for people to enjoy it. So just don't get petty or anything. Just enjoy what you're doing, have other people enjoy what you're doing, and build your brand up to be a strong one with a unique identity.
Is there any styles of coaching that, or is there any aspects of a team that you think are quite detrimental to a team atmosphere, to a team chemistry?
I mean, I think like just respecting people and like understanding their goals and like a team as a whole is like one of the most crucial things, because obviously as someone who's 17, coaching 23-year-olds, and people a lot older than me, having that respect of them maybe still looking at me as a child is very difficult to build. So you need to like be friends and like understand them, and they'll understand you and listen to you, and everyone will understand the viewpoints of each other, where in a lot of other teams it's maybe you won't have that because you're not able to build it with them because you don't know the person well enough to actually build it.
Vision, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess trust is super important as well, and I think my, maybe not thoughts on that, but I think probably one of my main feedback for like this sort of environment is that like every environment and every way you approach coaching has its positives and negatives, and the way you balance that is super important. It really does depend on what coach you are, who you are, and who the team you're coaching is. And if you can adapt your approach, that's one of the main things you want in a coach or in a team as well, like in terms of how they can adapt to each other. Like, for example, the Mind Goblin style is not going to work on other teams as well as it does here. It simply won't fit a lot of other archetypes of people and stuff like that. It's super important to match it to who you're with. And it's the same with, like, it also has its downsides. Like, there are some really great upsides, but there are times where it's hard to work in. And there are times where, like, I realized that, for example, a lot of like this trust stuff and this working together stuff is like, as much as it has a lot more to it than that, it's like this will be a detriment to the players in terms of like their personal development, and that is something that's really crucial. Like, for example, we focus on team development over personal development. While both are really essential and we work on both, like for example, there are some really niche like inside jokes, stuff like that, or like inside things that will only ever happen in Mind Goblin that make it hard for a player to move to another team. Whereas other coaching approaches will have like they'll have more consistency for player development. They'll make the player a better player and do nothing else. But it's still a really amazing approach. So there's no one way to look at it, and every way has its downsides.
That's very interesting.
And
actually,
upsides.
Very interesting. But most recently you were on the ex-Oblivione team that just kind of, I mean, to put it lightly, you did very well in Europe.
Yep.
You know, how did you stay motivated for 2 seasons of Contenders, you know, when you're very much at the top of that region?
Yeah, that's actually a good question because, like we won the first one, and I think we got a bit close in the finals. Because I think, you know, we were like first time in final, like the day before we beat the same team, we met 3-0, right?
Yeah.
And then because if we lost, we knew we could still make it, so there wasn't like really a lot of pressure. But I think the day after in the grand finals, it was complete dogfight, right? Like it was like a very close match.
It was 4-3, I think, or something like that.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
4-3. But I mean, just like the scrims up to like the practice, you know, is not really that close. But like in terms of motivation, I think the second the Run It Back series here, you know, I think everyone could kind of feel sometimes that, I wouldn't say we got lazy, but there were some times where we were just playing that it was sometimes it was like a bit more autopilot because it was kind of too easy sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the biggest question is like going forward now, because this was like kind of while I was still going on, so there wasn't like much else to do, right? But now in hopes of maybe, you know, getting picked up or something, then like it gets to a certain point where you gotta like, you know, it will get like a bit more demotivating over time, right? If you're just stuck, and because you can't obviously qualify your way into the league, right? But it also gets to a point because like the practice isn't the greatest, right? So like for me, I know my oppositions, like other hit scans in OWL, you know, they will daily scrim OWL DPS, right? And they will have probably good coaching, most of them, and they will exponentially improve. And then I sit here and scrim, tier 2, and some of them can be like okay, but it's not the same level,
not the
right?
same
like
level
it,
of practice,
I think it is a huge difference. So like in terms of overall skill, then you will always fall behind like gradually, right? So yeah, it's in a bit weird spot. Right now.
I think you know, and that's something you did a fantastic interview with JkAru on the GG Recon channel, and I'll post a link to that in the description. But that was something you touched on in that interview as well, and I think it's a really important point, you know, that makes getting into Overwatch League from Europe really difficult, because even if you're in the top of Contenders, NA and Korea, you do have access to those Overwatch League teams as well, you know. But I guess it just makes something like the signing of Sauna from Finland that bit more impressive, I think, nowadays. Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting in respect to the World Cup, you know. Some of the big hitters in this tournament, namely thinking of, you know, Danish Mafia and Danish Dynamite, who did very well in the Open qualifiers. It's a little bit unlikely that we'll see them in the World Cup. You know, they're going to have to work through a wildcard challenge or whatever that might be. You know, do you think there's potential here that some of these teams, maybe that aren't getting selected for the World Cup, kind of show up with a bit of a bang, have something to prove, a chip on their shoulder?
Well, I mean, it would be criminal if Denmark did not go to the World Cup, considering the last time they played the World Cup, what they get to the semi-finals or something,
it was
quarterfinals.
A deep run, a really deep run.
I mean, they are everyone in EU and NA, and maybe not in Asia, but everyone in EU and NA will tell you Denmark are probably one of the best teams. It's just an oversight on Blizzard's part because, well, let's just say I don't speak very fondly of the people who work there. So
Yeah, I don't think you're in a minority in that.
yeah,
A couple of people have some words. All right, yeah.
yeah, but I think it's a good stage, this tournament, for people who maybe not sort of thought as someone who would be selected for the national teams, to sort of show what they can do, and then it gives them, I guess, a bonus edge in their tryouts for the World Cup, where if people who are looking at them can say, oh, well, they performed well in this tournament, let's get them a tryout in the World Cup. I don't think the Danish Mafia will play with a chip on their shoulder. I think they are playing for fun, and they are vastly better than most of the people there. So if they did play with a chip on their shoulder, then good luck to everyone else. So,
Yeah, that's fair. Actually, that's a very good point. Yeah, and I mean, look, I've been obviously somewhat involved as an Irishman myself, and I've enjoyed working with you guys and keeping track of you guys through this tournament. But you know, thinking back to how I got involved in the scene, it was largely in part of that 2019 World Cup, Pure Irish, that you were involved in. It was just fantastic to see Irish people represented like that. What was it like actually being a part of that World Cup?
I think it's probably the most proud I've ever been in my life. I'm not gonna lie. Especially the week that we were in LA, and I've always said it was the best week of my life. Like, just being able to represent your country, knowing, especially when we were playing. Okay, we were playing against Iceland. We weren't really too confident about it, but we knew there was a watch party going on in a pub in Dublin back home at the time.
Yeah.
And just knowing that there's a room full of Irish people cheering you on, there's no other way to describe it. One of the reasons why I came back and actually started playing for 127 and then 721 was because I knew there's probably going to be another World Cup around the corner. And it's hard to describe, like, being able to hang out with Irish people, especially back then, right? I was not that good at the game, so I was playing with people like Liam, who had way more experience, Flex G, Scribsy. I've never had a proper coach, so getting coached at all was massive for me. And yeah, like that World Cup, the only things that have been pushing me forward all the time was the next World Cup. So 2019, that was finished. I was like, the coach, Scribsy, at the time, we were in an Uber back to the airport, and he said, if you keep playing the way you're playing, I can see you being a great off tank. And that has stuck with me ever since. I've always wanted to be a great off tank, or just a tank now, I guess. But yeah, like, and even just small things, like, for example, there was a watch party before we went over to LA. We're just watching the grand finals of Overwatch League.
Yeah.
And one or two people came up to me with Irish jerseys that they had bought, which is awesome. That people were funding us through these merchandise and donations, stuff like that. It was amazing, and they wanted me to sign their jerseys. And like, I'm just a little goblin from the middle of nowhere, and people are asking me to sign their jerseys. And then we go over to LA, and people are stopping us, asking us for photographs. People are like wanting me to sign, like a child. They can't be older than like 6 or 7. Came up to us. They had the book that you get for BlizzCon, and on the front of it was all signed by Team USA, and they wanted the back to be signed by all Team Ireland.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's no way I can possibly put into words how proud and how fulfilling it is to represent your country.
And then for our tank, we have JkAru from Essex.
Yeah, I think a name that definitely is a lot more familiar to most people. So, Sav, looking at that team then, who are you most excited to see? Is it JkAru, or is there someone on that team that might surprise people?
I'm really split, actually, because obviously JkAru, big name, so it's really exciting to see what he'll be able to do. But also local from Warwick, we have Meta One, who is without a doubt, I think it's fair to say the best DPS we've had in Warwick Overwatch. I think that'd be fair to say, right, Alex? He was
Yep.
a sim one trick, which is even more interesting. He's been top 500 consistently. I think top 100 for a little bit now.
Wow.
Probably even better, and he's done it all on sim, which is like insane.
Kind of mental, actually. Yeah.
He thinks in a different way to how you would think DPS is played.
Yeah. Well, I think, one of the most interesting things about sim one tricks in particular is, like, if you're a sim one trick at the highest level for a long time, you've played like 4 different heroes to the highest level. It's not like if you're a Mercy one trick, she's been pretty much the same for a good few years. But sim has gone through so many different iterations and changes that have been such a big deal. So that it definitely shows that there's a bit of a brain on this guy, which is definitely exciting to see. So Alex, I'll go back to you. Is there anyone across the whole competition then that you're most excited to see that maybe hasn't been mentioned yet?
Well, I mean, to sort of jump in off what you were saying there, Meta isn't the only sim one trick in the competition.
Oh, really?
So Meta is the South sim specialist, and the North also have a sim one trick in IMAX on their team.
Wow.
Both of whom are top 100, I'm pretty sure. So maybe you see this narrative of like the battle of the Symmetras, right? Maybe it'll be, which Symmetra player will sort of carry.
I mean, I'm hoping for it. Do you think the first season involved there, obviously with all the remote and a less than ideal situation, do you think that goes differently for London if you guys aren't playing from ping and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think it does. I think I wasn't there for the preseason scrims or obviously the months of the first half of the season. But from what I heard, things were going relatively well early in the season, scrim-wise. But they had a very tough couple of matches, so that hurts confidence.
Yeah.
Not having a team house, not being able to build that team culture, not being able to, the ping thing, obviously. And so what ends up happening is the sports with especially younger guys is just very snowbally. They don't have like that maturity to be able to deal with like adversity really well. So then they either get angry or they tend to shut down. And I think that we really struggled with that. Things tend to snowball very quickly. So we started hot from what I know of in preseason, but then as soon as we hit some real adversity, the ping, the lack of team environment, the frustration from losing definitely snowballed, and that's kind of where we went from there. It's really difficult to like revert that trend. And I think even if you look back at like players like Ripa and Kellex and Blase, I think those players had great potential. I think even Kellex right now is killing it and contenders. But when you're put in an environment like that, it's hard. Like you get snowballed and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And sometimes people just need a change of environment to kind of like reset that. And that's kind of, I felt like what London needed for this season afterwards.
And, talking about the snowball and that kind of the mental hurdle almost, as opposed to being like a mechanical hurdle, like, is it only a change of environment that we can do, or is there other things we can do for our players that maybe would benefit?
Well, I mean, I think one of the players that we were able to, I guess, to build up resilience versus that, I think Hadi was one who I'll continually bring up as somebody who was able to push through it. I mean, Hadi was very angry many times that season, being somebody who put in a lot of effort, worked really hard, and still had to deal with really disappointing results. And I think we definitely had some effort issues in the team, but Hadi was always working really hard. So obviously there's a little bit of resentment there. But I think the way Hadi was able to build up some armor that season and then carry it really into next season, because even this past season it's a tough times, right? So he really matured himself as a person. And like developed himself as a person, like whether it was the fitness or studying, mental performance, and just, I guess it's really hard to say, like, how do you get better at that? Well, you just need to develop as a person. and that is, you could write a lot of books on just how to do that exactly. But I think like that's, we're talking about like developing players, obviously preventing that snowball effect. You need to develop your players as better people who are able to better deal with adversity better. Because obviously a lot of these teams, with even good players, if things go poorly, if they're not mature individuals and strong competitors, then it can snowball quickly. So it's, as coaches, is trying to find ways to do that as best as you can. Is trying to develop your players.
And just thinking back to what you were mentioning about XO, was that something that you had to, work on in XO primarily, or was it?
Right, yeah, definitely tried to. I mean, it's a lot harder in tier 2 because you have the remote disadvantage, but you're not spending as much time with these players. You're not a lot of coaches in tier 2 unless you've been working with a team for a long time. You're just more of like you don't have a lot of authority, especially if you're early on. So you can't like crack the whip a lot. A lot of roster decisions are more like mutual like agreements kind of. So EXO was definitely trying to like build players up, but also I think in EXO's specific situation, there were a couple players that just didn't get along. And they were not going to get along. If this was an Overwatch League team, we would have had to sort that situation out, maybe even cut a few players. With EXO, it just means that they just go their separate ways. So for me, it was like, can we keep things together to finish out the stage, which we did? And then can we at least get some sort of development from each of the players? So it's like, I can't fix this player because this player refuses to work with this individual, but I can try and have something of a positive impact. So at least if it's going to end in flames, we're not all burned up as a result.
Okay. So guys, hope you enjoyed. It was a lot of fun editing this together and going back through all those memories and interviews that I had done. We'll be back next week. We're going to be looking at some of the European Invitational stuff. And we're going to get into some World Cup content in the future if that's something you guys are interested in. So make sure you stay tuned. Keep an eye on the channel, the Discord, the Twitter. All my socials will be below. Thank you.